Okay, good evening. This is the Town of Barnstable Waterways Committee meeting on November the 28th, 2023. Present for the town, we have Harbor Master Brian Taylor, Deputy Harbor Master Jay Horn, and Principal Assistant Pam Swider-Cohen. Members of the Waterways Committee present are Peter Cross, Todd Willantis, Ray Deegan, and myself, Paul Everson. Before we begin, I must note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Channel 18, and in accordance with Mass General Law 30A, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting, and if so, please make their presence known. Hearing nobody, let's go to our agenda. Okay, so we've had two sections of minutes. We have October 24th, 2023, and everybody had a chance to look at those.
I have not.
Okay, so make a motion by Peter to accept. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Greg. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And the workshop notes from November the 15th.
Make a motion to accept the workshop minutes of November 15th.
Second.
Okay, great. All right, Greg and Todd, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Okay. Notices of intent. What do we have there, Jay, for notices?
Nothing on the agenda tonight.
Oh, okay. And we have no mooring appeal, so mooring regulations and marina fees under old business.
Yeah, that's correct. We're just keeping these warm. The mooring regulations that we did during the workshop were submitted to legal. We're just waiting to hear back. Once they get approved by legal, they'll go to the town manager, where hopefully he signs off on them. And I'll keep the committee posted on the results. In terms of the marina fees, I know Harbor Master Taylor wants to do a workshop sometime in the spring, early spring. We're going to try to get through mooring renewal season first. And then I know there'll be some notification about that in the future, but nothing new to report as of now.
Okay. Thank you. Going on to new business, Barnstable Harbor Agricultural Zone floating gear mooring.
Yes, sir. And Natural Resource Officer Amy Kurtau is here, and she's going to speak to that.
Hi, thanks for having me here this evening. So as you are the Waterways Committee, I'm sure you're well aware of the aquaculture zone that we have in Barnstable Harbor. Traditionally, only bottom gear no more than 24 inches has been allowed off of the bottom in that location. However, in recent years, our growers have had to deal with Vibrio compliance for 6 months out of the year, typically starting around the middle of May and running through the middle of October. And so the request is for, because they can only harvest during certain periods of time during that season, to have some floating gear that, if I can not share my screen, I do have a picture of one sort of oyster grow that the Bunnells had planned on using. And it sits maybe about this far above water at high tide, but would allow them to stage product that they would otherwise have to use long lines and small buoys and sort of tag things every 5 to 10 feet and pull off tide for harvest and subsequent sale. It's something that we've checked with the Army Corps to see if it would be something that they would permit. It would be something that would require those growers to pursue their own Army Corps permits moving forward, because it would be a change to the existing permit held by the town, but it is permittable. And Harbor Master has been amenable so long as we also include formal sort of buoys around the aquaculture zone as a whole, just to notify people in a better way outside of just the existing practices over the past 30 to 40 years, that there is aquaculture taking place in that area.
Amy, I made you a co-host if you wanted to share that picture
Oh,
with the
nice.
committee, that'd be great.
Where did it go? There we go. So here's a picture of Jen Bunnell. And you can see where her hand is laying flat is about the distance that would be visible above water when it's placed in the column. And then they would have staging for bags of product that would go to market for better use in their Vibrio control plans.
Okay, and a quick question, Amy. So the rest of the cage would be at low tide, the whole thing would just be like on the flats?
So that's, they have floats. It shouldn't be completely flat, but in areas that they could go flat, we could, put additional requirements for that. But most of this is for people who have areas of site that are more intertidal. But there would be potential for them to go flat at low tide.
Okay, thank you.
Amy, you said that there's an Army Corps permit. Is that the town, or is that the shelf fishermen, or is that both that would need to be modified?
So currently the Army Corps permit for the aquaculture zone in Barnstable Harbor is held by the town. However, the Army Corps does not currently amend existing Army Corps permits for towns that did sort of like block permitting of aquaculture zones in the before time, for liability purposes mostly. So moving forward, if it's a change that's not consistent with the existing permit, the grower themselves, similar to what we have on the south side of town, where all Army Corps permits are held by the individual growers and not the municipality, would have to be how that would be moving forward.
Thank you.
But we would also require them to get a mooring permit through the town of Barnstable, since they're going to have a bottom anchor to attach these to the nets, right, Amy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for
I have a
Amy?
question. Would they have to go through the wait list proposition, or are we granting them mooring permits because they're a special category of aquaculture?
They're not in a designated mooring field, so the individual would just have to apply for it. It would kind of be like a non-designated mooring permit.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
it wouldn't be affecting anyone on the wait list whatsoever.
No,
Got it.
and it'll also be on their grant.
Yeah.
Okay, and do we have an aerial or a picture of where these would be located? Just to kind of give us a better idea.
I don't have one on me.
Be able to bring up GIS, Jay, it should show.
Yeah, I'm bringing up GIS right now.
So while that's coming up, what's the actual question before us? So what's the issue?
Well, it's just to see if Waterways has any issues in terms of navigation. Barnstable Harbor is a very dynamic area. And while Natural Resources sees a benefit to this for our growers in terms of a change of gear, and while Army Corps sees it as permissible, these are waters that are used by many different types of user groups. And so we just want to make sure that anyone who has a vested interest in the waterways themselves has an opportunity to look at this before we allow people to embark on these endeavors of change.
Thank you.
Amy, can you speak a little bit about the current gear in existence there? And what hazards there may already be to navigation here with, between, low tide and mid tide?
Oh yeah, so a lot of this area, goes completely dry on most, if not all tides, depending on where you're located within the zone. And although we do have regulations that dictate, if you have an aquaculture licensed site that abuts the channel, you're to use a different type of buoy so that people can potentially find a way to navigate through there. There is no formal sort of, boundaries to the zone itself. And the second that you have probably, I'd say, 6 feet of water on there, anybody in a kayak could be, driving into or putting themselves into off bottom culture that's a little over 2 feet off bottom, and also could be tearing up quahog nets that are in soft shell clam nets that are protecting somebody's, product that they're growing from predators. So there's a lot of, it's just a very dynamic area. So this would be a change that would, I think, not only bring attention to the fact that there is aquaculture within that zone, could be beneficial to the growers themselves, but definitely could be an additional hazard to people who are navigating in that area of Barnstable Harbor.
Okay, so as we're looking at the current GIS that's up there, you can see the outlines of several of the grants. Where would these be in relation to? I think right center of the picture looks like probably a boat navigating through there. So where would they be in relation to that deeper water?
So this would be like potentially one of those cages per 2-acre parcel, and there are around 97 acres that are parsed out in 2-acre, areas thereabouts across that zone. So it could be upwards of, although I don't see everybody wanting to implement this, but it could be upwards of, say, like 48 of those grows across that area.
Okay, and for people that are probably more familiar with the, like the Narrows at Oyster Harbors and Katuitt, would it look similar to that, where you have those floating bags, or would they encompass an area similar to that?
It really would only be functional for certain people. And so, I mean, we could work with the growers to ensure that they're kind of, in line, I guess, as best as some would want aesthetically or for navigable purposes. But that part we had not really formally discussed. This was more of just a vetting discussion.
It's somewhat self-policing though, isn't it? Basically, they're going to want to take care of their own gear, so try to keep it out of harm's way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not something, that will be functional for people who are only growing softshell clams or who are only doing quahogs or who go completely dry and don't want that type of apparatus, sitting on top of their trays. It's not going to be functional for every grower. But we do have, the barge out there. So it's kind of along the same lines. And then you do have the boats that are, moored out there every single tide as well.
Okay, and would these be in any sort of this channel area where they would potentially, I don't know, interfere with navigation?
So they're not allowed to have any product, any gear outside of their licensed boundaries. So no, because anything that's, over 3 feet on any given tide is navigable waters and not eligible for them to use by our regulations in their licensed site.
All right, that's probably my biggest concern, is that they wouldn't encroach on any of the traditional channel areas, or, as much as, we don't have so much channels, but just the traditional deeper water areas that people are accustomed to traveling, as opposed to just, going zipping over the flats. That's fine that, when there's 9-10 feet of water, but isn't always the case.
Right. Yeah, no, they can't have anything outside of what their licensed boundaries detail.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns from any of the members? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Can we put a vote to this?
Okay, so that just to kind of summarize it, it would be a vote from the Waterways Committee to support. And who was making the proposal, Jay? Is it?
Well, I believe Amy is speaking on behalf of the shellfish growers that are wishing to use this gear.
Okay, so.
So
is
the
it
vote is whether or not we allow this moving forward in this area.
Okay, so a vote for consideration of amendment of their permitted structures on their grants with the proper markings as far as navigation. That about summarize the extent of that?
Yeah, I believe that would do it.
Okay. How do the members feel about that? Anybody have concerns or voicing an opinion in either direction?
I'd be in favor of it.
Yeah, it's okay with me.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was going to be in the form of a motion or you just informal here. I'm also in favor.
Okay, and Peter?
Yes, I'm in favor of it.
Okay, and I would be in support of that as well. So with that, we will approve as proposed.
Thanks,
Really
Amy.
appreciated. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. All right, Jay, what do we have next?
The item we have on the agenda, I don't see Amber here to speak to it. So I think we might have to postpone this, Mr. Chairman.
Is that number 2, the DPW floating treatments?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, and item number 3 is waterfront property owners request for floating treatments, wetland request, mooring permit application, Long Pond, Marston's Mills.
Yeah, so these two projects are very similar in the respect that they're trying to accomplish the same thing. I don't know specifically what's going on in Long Pond. Is it high nitrogen levels, Brian? Do you know the actual issue with the pond?
I don't know the actual issue. Paul, you may be able to speak to that.
Yeah, I actually own a property on Long Pond and Marston's Mills. So we've had that cyanobacteria and high nitrogen elevated probably in the past 10 years. And I know there's a group that have been working with the town trying to mitigate some of the effects of that. And I know there was discussion about this floating treatment. I don't have the specifics of it. There is a group, Friends of Long Pond, who have been in the forefront of developing something, I guess, along with the town. But that is the extent of my awareness of it.
So it sounds like it's two separate things here. The
Yeah.
town itself is moving forward with their own floating treatment, which is sort of a marsh area. I know Amber's not here to speak with it, like it says wetlands. And then the Long Pond Association brought forward a proposal for floating basically hay bags in the area. Since they didn't actually file an application, we did have a meeting with them. We didn't feel that the floating hay bags, the amount they needed in this location, we would support. So we told them that they're welcome to apply for the permit, that we probably would not permit that due to it being a hazard to navigation. With that being said, they moved forward with requesting to potentially permit in front of their own properties some of these hay bags. And Jay has brought this forward because if he was to permit it, it would be a non-designated area in front of their property, and he would require them to have a mooring ball. So there would be some of the hay bags not as many as they proposed, but those locations would be in front of the property owner's property. So he kind of wanted to bring this forward in front of Waterways to get their support. And then unfortunately DPW is not here tonight, but DPW's is a little bit different. It's an actual wetlands, which would be floating in Long Pond anchor. It would be grounded by a bottom anchor. So they would need a mooring permit, just like the other waterfront property owners, but it's a total different system. It's not low-lying hay bags. It's actually sort of like a small marsh wetland area with vegetation.
Okay, thank you. Did they describe the size of these hay bags?
From what I understand, it's kind of similar to a bale of hay.
Yes.
They're going to be using barley straw, and from what I understand, it's going to be about the size of a bale of hay. So
Okay, thank you.
it does meet the non-designated mooring permit requirement as long as they're waterfront property owners. We're in approval of it. We do ask that they mark it with a polyball, just because there is some navigation in this pond. We want to make sure that it's visible to people. But it's going to be right in front of their backyards. It's not going to be out in the middle of the pond.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. Any members have any other questions about this? I know we don't have anybody speaking on behalf of it, but we get a general idea of it.
Yeah, any questions about the floating wetlands, you can direct to me and I can forward to Amber with DPW for, any of your questions or concerns. I really didn't have an issue with it due to the fact that it's a wetland. It's not a low-lying hay bag or it can be seen. It can be visible.
So this floating wetlands, excuse me, you would see something that would look like vegetation in the water that is anchored in a certain area. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So it would be above the water, but yes, it's basically just what it says, a floating wetlands or like a vegetation growth above the water that's anchored.
Okay. How big are they? Have they figured it out yet?
It's fairly large. I don't know. Amber would have to answer that question. I want to say it's fairly large though.
And aside from the hazards of navigation, it seems to me, unless someone can correct me, that it's a positive thing. We should be in favor of reducing the nitrogen and working towards that goal for the residents of Long Pond and the community.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Mr. Everson, you can probably speak to this, but how much motor vessel navigation is there in Long Pond? If there's none, it's under 9.9 horsepower, correct?
Correct. It's 9.9 and it has a pretty good bass fishery. And I would say on any given day, there may be a couple of, small boats out there. Most everything out there, is fairly small, 10 foot or so, something designed for, the 9.9. There's, kayaking, but there's probably not, it's not as heavy traffic as I've seen in years past, but, 3-4 boats on a weekend, maybe.
Okay. So yeah, I think moving forward, if we were to permit the floating treatments in front of waterfront property owners, they'd be a non-designated area. They'd have to have waterfront property owner in order to get an application approved. And then as far as DPW goes, it would be a floating wetland, which is highly visible of the water line. And each one of these new business items will require mooring permits.
Okay, and just my other question would be, where would the DPW's floating wetland be located? Is it going to be, it's probably going to be one of the ends of the ponds, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that right now without Amber present, but I'd be happy to share that with the Waterways Committee when I obtain that information.
Sure, because my question is coming from, there is an association beach that is on the south side of the pond, somewhat towards the middle of the pond, and the town's right of way, or the town way to water is a little to the west of that. So the traffic of, like people going to the beach or, coming down from the Newtown Road, the parking area next to the big field, there's access down through the trails. So that would be right there. I just would hope it wouldn't be parked right in front of the beach or that area.
My guess is it would be somewhere towards the middle of the pond, but I can surely note that and discuss that with Amber, but I will share some more information with the Waterways Committee as well.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have hearing for the renewal of aquaculture grant for Christopher Gargiulo, 309 Pine Ridge Road, Katuitt. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, December the 12th at 10:30 a.m. in the Selectmen's Conference Room in Town Hall. Next, we have Harbor Master report.
Yes, sir. We've been busy wrapping up the season. We just finished removing all the ATONs for the year. About 175 ATONs total have been removed. So anyone still navigating out there, be careful. There are no longer any channel markers in the town of Barnstable. In other news, we have the boat parade coming up December 2nd in Lewis Bay. I don't know if any of you have been to this before, but it's a very fun event. Looks like the boats will be coming into the harbor around 4:30 p.m. and Santa Claus will be getting dropped off around 5 o'clock by Hyannis Fire. So that's a great event for those who haven't been to it. And again, that's this Saturday, December 2nd. Last bit of information is anyone who won the lottery, the closed wait list lottery, applications are due by December 1st. Just winning the lottery does not automatically put you on the wait list. You need to submit an application and pay the $25 fee. And again, that's due December 1st. And that's all I have for you gentlemen tonight.
December 1st, which is this Friday.
That's correct. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Certainly coming up fast. Let's see. We do not have any other matters that I know of. Any members have anything else they'd like to bring forward?
Not to me.
Okay, our next meeting date, I'm gonna go through my notes, but have we addressed a December meeting yet? And what the date is on the calendar? Let's try to find that.
I believe it's the 19th.
Okay. Thanks, Pam. Everybody's still going to be able to make the 19th? Anybody have any problems with that? I know I'll be available.
I'll be
available as well.
Okay. All right, if we don't hear anybody, if we don't hear a lot of folks traveling or whatever, then we'll keep the 19th on and we'll just advise as that approaches, but we'll anticipate having our December 19th meeting as scheduled. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Peter. Thank you, Greg. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the evening and see you on the 19th of December.